Hi there, and welcome to the Winds of Winter released sample chapters explained. If you haven't watched our Dance with Dragons and A Feast for Crows summaries, please click the link above. Now, starting with Theon 1, though reportedly isolated and secluded at the Crofters village, Stannis is actively preparing for the looming battle against the Boltons. Stannis received the Braavosi banker Tycho Nestoris, and the two signed a contract. Stannis is planning on sending the banker back to the Wall so he does not get caught up in the fighting. Stannis is made aware of Arnulf Karstark's planned treachery due to the message Jon Snow gave the banker. Stannis has Arnulf, his son Arthur, and 3 grandsons arrested and plans to execute them, though whether their death will be quick, beheadings, or by fire depends on their willingness to confess. Stannis is preparing his position to battle the coming vanguard of Roose Bolton's army, led by Hostine Frey. Stannis is sending Sir Justin Macy to escort Arya Stark, actually Jane Poole, though this is unknown to Stannis, back to the Wall to reunite the girl with her brother Jon Snow in gratitude for Snow warning him to amass the Northern Mountain clans rather than march straight into Arnulf's trap. Stannis also orders Massey to go with Tycho to Braavos, where Massey will use the gold given to him by the Iron Bank of Braavos to hire sellsword companies until he has a force no less than 20,000 strong, and then sail back to Westeros. Stannis gives orders that if he is slain in the coming battle, Massey is still to do as instructed, with the intention of using the army to place Shireen on the Iron Throne. Stannis also plans to have Theon Greyjoy executed, hoping to gain favour with his northern allies by exacting justice for the murders of Bran and Rickon Stark. Asha Greyjoy tries to convince Stannis to execute Theon before a werewood heart tree. Next sample chapter is Arianna 1, who is travelling towards Ghost Hill with her companions. Her new sworn sword, Daemon Sand, her bastard cousin Elias Sand, Jane Ladybright, Sir Joss Hood, Sir Jerebold Shells, and Nate. Ellaria Sand has left Sunspear to go back to Hellholt, her father Harmon Ola's seat, with Loreza. Doria Sand remains at the Water Gardens, hidden among all the children, and Obella Sand is dispatched to Sunspear as a cupbearer. Ellaria's sand snakes are now scattered, so as to better to survive the carnage. Arianna and her group travel for 2 days and 2 nights, and Arianna starts to reminisce. She thinks about how she and Daemon Sand, once so close, grew apart after Doran Martell had refused to let Daemon marry Arianna. She thinks about Spotted Sylvia, Dre, and Garen, and about how one of them must have betrayed her. She misses her friends, and she misses Arius Oakheart as well, more than she expected. She believes he charged into Areo Hotar's axe because he could not live with what he had done. All of Arianna's friends have suffered because of her plot, except for Darkstar, Sir Gerald Dane, who fooled Arianna with his good looks. Obara has been sent to hunt Darkstar down, and Arianna is convinced that her cousin is up for the task, especially since Areo is with her. But Daemon warns her that Darkstar could kill Obara just as easily, when she confides in him. The second day of their journey, they move at a more sedate pace, and Arianna commands Daemon to tell her all he knows about John Cunnington, but all he can tell her is information Arianna has already learnt from her father. What Daemon tells her does leave her thinking, and that night in her tent she reads the letter Jon sent to Prince Doran, informing him that Aegon Targaryen, Elia Martell's son by Rhaegar Targaryen, is still alive, and asking for the help of Dorne. But Prince Doran has his doubts. Arianna knows as well. He was expecting a dragon to return to Westeros, but this is not the one he was hoping for. They have not heard anything about Daenerys Targaryen and Quentyn Martell, and Prince Doran worries. 2 Dornish armies have amassed, and one word from Arianna will make them march. On the 3rd day of their journey, they reach Ghost Hill, where they sup with Lady Nymelia Tolland and her 2 daughters. And here, Arianna learns that Griffin's Roost, Rain House, Crow's Nest, Mistwood, and Greenstone have fallen to the Golden Company with certainty, and there are rumours about Tarth, Cape Wrath, and half the Stepstones having fallen to them as well. Lady Valanna Toland also tells that there are elephants in the Rainwood, and Arianna takes this to mean that Quentyn has not yet returned. Lady Nymelia and Valanna go on to discuss the fighting on the Stepstones. Lady Nymela's youngest daughter, Tiora Toland, has a different opinion. She has dreamed about dragons, and everywhere the dragons danced, people died. That night, Arianna tries to seduce Sir Daemon, but he resists, so they talk instead about whether or not Aegon could truly have survived. Arianna voices Doran's wishes, but her answers to Daemon's questions do not truly reflect her feelings inside. She wishes that Quentyn had returned, but cannot stop thinking how silly King Quentyn sounds, nor how silly Quentyn riding a dragon would be. They continue their voyage on a ship called the Peregrine, where Arianna and Daemon discuss Viserys Targaryen, the Beggar King. Arianna wonders why Daenerys allowed Viserys to be killed by her own husband, Khal Drogo. Perhaps Daenerys realized that once her brother was crowned and wed to me, she would be doomed to spend the rest of her life sleeping in a tent and smelling like a horse. When she tells Daemon that Daenerys is the Mad King's daughter, wondering if she has the taint as well, Daemon answers, "We cannot know. We can only hope." Barristan 1. The Yunkayish troops are shooting dead men into Meereen with 6 trebuchets, but despite their size, they fail to get the corpses far into the city. Barristan rides through the western market square, remembering the time Daenerys took Meereen. The market has again become a scene of carnage, this time from the Pale Mare. He rides Daenerys' silver, hoping that the horse's presence will inspire the warriors of Meereen to be brave, since Daenerys is gone. In addition, Barristan knows the horse has grown used to the presence of her dragons, who are now loose in the city. Tumco Lu, Larrick the Lash, and the Red Lamb ride with Selmy, carrying the banners of the Kingsguard and House Targaryen, and a war horn to sound the commands. The Stormcrows and 5,000 Unsullied have gathered as well. Even the last few Dothraki who remain in Meereen have come to fight, and Barristan is surprised to see many pit fighters have gathered at the market square as well. They have always loved Hisdar Zolaric more than Daenerys, yet it seems that freedom means something to them after all. The brazen beasts man the city walls to free up as many Unsullied as possible. Barristan reflects that if they lose the battle, it will be Scarhaz Mokandic and his men who will have to hold Meereen against Yunkai until Daenerys' return. At every gate, a force has gathered, the stalwart shields at the eastern gate, the Mother's men at the south gate, and the Free Brothers and Simon Strikeback at the north gate. Barristan is certain that the Yunkai have more men than they do, and he feels that this attack he is planning goes against his instincts. Barristan's plans hinge upon the greed of the Tattered Prince. Barristan gives a speech to the men assembled at the eastern market square. He repeats their plans for all to hear, and reflects that if he falls, Jaqen will have the command, and Grey Worm after him. The realization that some of the men fear the Pale Mare more than they fear the enemies make Barristan speak once more to his squires about how every warrior is afraid before battle. He admits they are too few to win the battle, and their goal is to create chaos so the Unsullied will have enough time to form a spear wall. He is interrupted when the harpy on top of Meereen's Great Pyramid takes fire, their signal. The portcullis goes up, and Barristan dons his helm, ready for the battle. Tyrion 1. We join Tyrion playing Savas with Brown Ben while they wait for Sir Grandfather's army to sally forth and try to break the siege of Meereen. These two share banter with others of Brown Ben's staff about what's the worst thing about waiting for the battle to start, punctuated by the sound of the trebuchets as they fling more plague corpses into Meereen. Brown Ben muses that the two dragons are wild cards, which could attack anything on either side during the battle. They assume Dany will return on the third dragon and speculate about rescuing the 3 hostages, Dario, Hero, and Jogo, and delivering them to Meereen, thereby changing sides a second time, but claiming that they only pretended to change sides before as to learn the Yunkayish plans. Tyrion thinks Dany will welcome him into her cause because he killed her most dangerous enemy, Tywin. Just as Tyrion is about to win the Savas game, Jorah bursts in with news of the black sails in the bay, Ironborn ships, flying dragon banners. Victorian 1. Victorian Greyjoy and the remnants of the Iron Fleet approach Meereen in the hope of winning both Daenerys and her dragons to their side. Victorian charges Wolf One Ear to lead the commandeered ships they have acquired during their voyage, to strike the first blow against the slavers. A relentless Victorian thinks about taking the Sea Stone chair, the Iron Throne, and the world with Daenerys using the dragon horn. To accomplish this, Victorian gives 3 oarsmen the job of blowing the magical horn. Dragonbinder, which is supposed to give its owner control of the dragons. He promises the men vast rewards if they survive the gig, but thinks to himself that they'll probably die. He then commands Mokoro to go pray, who replies that he sees dragons in the flame. Aria 1. A girl named Mercy wakes up after having dreamed of wolves and blood and being watched by a tree. She is in Bravos, where the day is hidden in a chilly fog. She is going to perform in a play tonight at the gate, where an envoy from Westeros will come and watch a performance. Isambaro, the king of the Murmurs, will not tolerate her being late. After scrubbing and shaving her head so as to better keep the wigs on her head, Mercy rushes to the gate, where she finds Big Brusco painting the sign for tonight's play. The Bloody Hand, written by fellow Forel. The Bloody Hand features characters such as the Fat King, played by Isambaro, the Boy King, and the Demonic Dwarf, played by Bobino. Mercy's character is a young, sweet maiden who will be raped and murdered by the dwarf. Isambaro reminds them all that there will be many important people in the audience tonight, so they must impress them. An hour before the show starts, Mercy spends her time helping the Murmurs with their costumes, sticking the horn back on the stranger, finding Isambaro's crown in the privy, finding needle and thread so the gown of the queen can be sewed back up, lacing up Bobino's fake cock, which is to be used for the raping scene, finding Isambaro's boar spear, helping Big Brusco into his boar costume, checking the knives used for the play, and pouring wine for Lady Stork. By then, the pit is already very full. The Westerosi envoy has arrived as well, accompanied by the Black Pearl of Bravos. Mercy's friend, Deanna, tells her that the Black Pearl descends from a Targaryen king, but Mercy states that the term Brown Pearl would be more fitting, due to her skin color. They speak about the signal of the envoy, and Deanna points out that the envoy's guards have lions for their sigil. Then, Mercy sees a familiar face. She points him out to Deanna, telling her she thinks he is fair to look upon. Mercy goes in search for him, pretending toward the other Murmurs that she is off to practice her lines for the play. It is the first time she has had lines in a play, and everyone expects her to be nervous to get them right. The man Mercy is looking for is found guarding the entrance to the envoy's seating with another lion guard. The guards are discussing the length of their stay, claiming, if he returns without gold, the queen will have his head. Mercy approaches Rayford as the play begins. When they turn out not to understand Bravosi, Mercy speaks to them in broken common tongue, telling them that Isambaro said to please the lords. His companion is disgusted by the thought of sex with a girl so young, but Rafford sees no problem. Mercy takes him back to her little room a few blocks away from the gate, warning him they have to hurry, otherwise Mercy will miss her rape in the second act. She teases him that he could be a murmur, and that she could teach him a line to say. Once in her room, Mercy slides her finger down the inside of Raff's thigh, but when Raff insists she unlace him, Mercy tells him he is bleeding. Rafford does not understand, but he starts to bleed heavily and calls for Mercy to get a healer. Mercy insists that the healer will only help those who come to him. When Rafford tells her that he cannot walk and she will have to carry him, Mercy happily thinks to herself, see, you know your line, and so do I. You think so? Arya Stark asks Rafford, which is the same line he gave to Lomi before killing him. Arya takes the blade out from her sleeve and kills him, whispering, Valamaguris. Knowing that this will be the end of Mercy, Arya realizes she will miss Deanna, Isambaro, and Bobino, but that there is no time to think about that now. Mercy still has some lines to say in the play, and she must not miss her own rape. Barristan too. His gut feels twisted from nervousness as he rides through the gates. He knows that the feeling will go away when time slows down in the chaos of battle. Dany's horse is easily outpacing the lads and the rest of the cavalry. Selmy is pleased because he intends to outrun the widower and strike the first blow. The Yunkai are totally unprepared and Barristan closes in on the Heradian, the largest of the trebuchets. The Stormcrows take up the cry, Dario! And Stormcrows fly! Barristan thinks that he will never again doubt the valor of sellswords. There are only 30 yards between the horse and the Yunkai legions by the time any defense is mounted. The air fills with arrows, A squire for the Stormcrows is killed, and a bolt pierces Barristan's shield. There are 3 horn blasts, and the pit fighters emerge from the gate behind them. Barristan glances back to see the pit fighters. There are about 200 of them, but they make enough noise for 2,000. One woman stands out wearing nothing but greaves, sandals, a chainmail skirt, and a python. Barristan is a bit shocked, and watching her breasts bouncing around, thinks that this day is sure to be her last. The pit fighters are mostly shouting, "Lorak!" and "His star!" but some do call out, "Daenerys!" Lorak is hit in the chest with an arrow, bringing Barristan's attention forward, but the squire keeps the banner held high and shakes it off. Barristan has reached the Heradian, but a Giscari legion 6,000 strong has lined up to protect the huge trebuchet. They are 6 ranks deep. The first rank kneels and holds their spears pointing out and up. The second rank stands and holds their spears out at waist height. And the third rank holds the spears out on their shoulders. The rest have small throwing spears and are ready to step forward when their comrades fall. Barristan knows that a maester's chain is only as strong as his weakest link, and identifies the companions of the Yunkai lords as the weakest of the imminent foes, certainly weaker than the slave legions. In particular, Barristan targets the little pigeon and his herons. The slaves chosen to be herons were freakishly tall before they were put on stilts, and wear pink scales and feathers and steel beaks. But Barristan sees that they will be blind because of the dawn rising over the city, and like to break ranks easily. So Barristan turns away from the legion guarding the trebuchet at the last minute and heads for the herons. He cuts the head off of one of the herons and his lads join the fray. Dany's horse knocks a heron into 3 others and they all fall over. In a moment, the herons are scattering and running away, led by the little pigeon himself. Unfortunately for the little pigeon, he trips over the fringes of his bird armor and gets caught by the red lamb. The little pigeon begs for mercy, saying that he will fetch a large ransom. The red lamb just says, "I came for blood, not gold," and knocks in the little pigeon's head with his mace, splattering blood all over Barristan and Dany's silver horse. The Unsullied begin marching through the gates, and Barristan sees that the Yunkai have missed their chance to effectively launch a counterattack. As he watches more of the slave legions get slaughtered, mostly those who were chained together and could not retreat, he wonders where the sellsword companies like the treacherous Second Sons have gone. The Unsullied finish lining up outside the gates, implacable even when one of their own number falls, with a crossbow bolt to the neck. Tumco draws Barristan's attention to the bay, asking, "Why are there so many ships?" Barristan remembers that yesterday there were 20, but now there are thrice that many. His heart sinks when he reasons that the ships from Volantis must have arrived, but then sees some of the ships are crashing together. He asks Tumco, whose young eyes can see more clearly, to identify the banners. Tumco says, "Squids. Big squids. Like in the Basilisk Isles, where sometimes they drag whole ships down." Barristan replies, "Where I'm from, we call them Krakens." Realizing that the Greyjoys have arrived, his first thought is, has Balon joined with Joffrey or the Starks? But he realizes that he's heard that Balon is dead, and wonders if this has something to do with Balon's son, the boy who was a ward of the Starks. He sees that Iron Men are coming ashore, fighting the Yunkaish, and says surprised, "They are on our side." The sellswords did not come to meet his charge because they were already preoccupied with the Ironborn. Barristan is almost gleeful. It's like Baelor Breakspear and Prince Maekar, the hammer and the anvil. We have them! We have them! Elaine 1. Sansa is reading her Little Lord A Tale of the Winged Knight, until Maya Stone announces that Harry the Heir will be here soon. Elaine needs to make Harry Harding agree to their betrothal. "I hate that Harry," Sweet Robin says. "He calls me cousin, but he's just waiting for me to die so he can take the Eyrie. He thinks I don't know, but I do." Robert wants Elaine to marry him instead, but Elaine argues that his bannermen won't abide by it. Elaine goes searching for her father and describes the surrounding scenery, alluding to a detail that could be of significance: the scattered pages on Baelish's Solar and the arrival of the much speculated about tapestries of King Robert. Alongside her walk, she reflects on the upcoming tournament, which was her idea. with the purpose of empowering young Lord Arryn and give him security by reproducing his favourite story about Sir Artus Arryn. Baelish had found the idea clever, and preparations were made for the youth of the Vale to attend a tourney where 64 knights would compete, one of the 8 spots in Robin's Winged Knights. Aside the positive impact on the Little Lord's morale, this is also a political move that will tighten Peter's control of the Vale and keeping the nobles in check, which accounts for why he accepted it readily. Most contestants are in the castle, and some knights are in the yard training, while others are courting Miranda Royce. Elaine rescues Randa from her admirers. The two run into Sir Lyn, and Sansa mentions the newly married Lord Corbray's impending fatherhood, coming from a marriage arranged by Baelish, which leads to the startling discovery that Lyn is infuriated at losing his place as heir and resentful of Peter for this. Resentment he doesn't hide to the girl. Elaine concludes that the man could, in reality, be Baelish's foe, pretending to be his ally by pretending to be his foe. A discovery that could have potentially negative consequences for the Lord Protector and his plans. Next, the Mad Mouse, Sir Shadrick, into whom Elaine bumps right after leaving the yard, has definitely identified her as Sansa Stark. Elaine doesn't find Peter before the Waynwood party arrive, so has to race to the gates with Miranda. Once there, she greets Lady Anya Werenwood, who introduces herself, her grandson Roland, her younger son Wallace, and her ward Harold, to whom Elaine has a nervous yet hopeful reaction, wishing him to like her as it's crucial for her father's plan. So Harold looks every inch a lord in waiting, clean-limbed and handsome. She admires his features, and so she behaves graciously and charmingly, but also notices that, unlike the gallant flirter Sir Roland and the eager Sir Wallace, he doesn't look pleased to meet her. Indeed, he ends up insulting her rudely when she offers to escort him to his place in the castle, saying that there's no reason as to why it'd please him to be escorted by Littlefinger's bastard, which almost has Elaine in tears. Stone-faced, she begs her leave as she goes to search for Baelish. On the path, she finds Lortha Brune, who cheers her up by calling him Harry the Arse, and she gives him a quick hug. Finally locating her father in the vaults, Peter had been having a meeting on the Vale's food stores. Elaine shares her distress over Harry's ill-mannered words. He called me your bastard, right in the yard, in front of everyone. Although he is quick to reassure her by citing realistic reasons for Harry's behaviour, and tells her she still needs to charm him, entrance him, bewitch him, Sansa is not sure if she can. When nightfall comes, Elaine rules the festivities with constant requests for dancing and knights vying for her attention. Elaine is rewarded when Harry comes to her table as the dancing is underway and pleads her forgiveness for his rude comments. She hesitates in accepting his apology, but grants his request for a dance. After struggling to think of what to say to capture his interest, she settles on an interesting choice to ask about his bastards, in order to see if Sir Harold would lie. While he doesn't lie, Harry does show considerable insensitivity towards the girl who bore his first child, Sissy, commenting that she has grown as fat as a cow. Elaine's teasing manner and her sharp play of words finally attracts Harry's true interest in her as more than a pretty girl with a large dowry. I hope you joust better than you talk. For a moment, he looked shocked, but as the song was ending, he burst into laugh. No one told me you were clever. Having been successfully disarmed, Harry asks Sansa for her favour to wear in the tourney. Elaine, however, withholds this token, telling Harry that it is promised to another, without knowing who yet. Ariana too. The princess is currently travelling through the Stormlands to meet both Lord John Cunnington and Prince Aegon with Daemon Sand, Elia Sand, and her escort. Ariana is very cautious and skeptical of Aegon, gathering information on his intentions and troop strength. She has brought 5 Sunspear Ravens with her to keep Prince Doran informed. She has no intentions of seeking a marriage alliance with Aegon and to leave the ultimate decision up to her father. As they travel, Ariana sends her men into inns and taverns to seek out news. Most of what comes back is lies. The Griffin's men have been raiding and plundering the area. The plan is to travel to Mistwood and then Griffin's Roost. The going is quite slow, and Ariana is amused by the arguments between both the Maester and Scepter accompanying her. Doran used to remark that the differences between scepters and maesters are similar to the differences between Dorne and the Stormlands. While en route to Mistwood, Arianna contemplates whether Quentyn reached Daenerys and married her. She considers that Dany is still a young maiden and recalls that Quentyn is quite unremarkable looking or dashing, and unlikely to impress someone Dany's age. Still, Arianna thinks Dany will want Dorne enough to marry Quentyn. Arianna is shaken out of her daydream after realizing that her cousin, Elia, has been missing for a while, and goes to look for her. The search finds Elia in a cave, trying to catch a fish in a stream. Arianna is furious, but Elia becomes petulant because she doesn't think that she did anything wrong. She shouts that Elia could have died in the cave, and the word die echoes 3 times against the walls. Arianna makes her promise to behave, as she is supposed to be pretending to be one of the princess's maidservants. She confides in Elia that she often wished Oberyn had been her father instead of Doran. On the walls of the cave, they find carvings left behind by the children of the forest. Later, she asks Daemon what her father was thinking sending Elia with them. Bemused, Sand answers, vengeance. They arrive at Mistwood, which isn't flying its banners, and head into the castle and are met by 2 men of the Golden Company, young John Mudd and Chain. They won't tell Arianna much, but eventually she gets Chain to admit that the half-maester is at the roost and Connington is on the march, though doesn't say where. Despite their earlier talks, Elia continues to misbehave. Arianna catches her kissing a servant named Feathers who was twice her age. Elia protests that she was just kissing. Arianna reminisces privately about losing her virginity to Daemon at the same age. The 2 women argue over who would be the more attractive hostage, and Elia promises to behave again. Chain accompanies them on their 8-day march in drizzling Rainwood. He is more forthcoming without young John Mudd's presence. He regales Arianna with many sellsword tales and lets slip that Connington is marching on Storm's End. Arianna thinks that's a preposterous plan, as she considers the various castles of Westeros and believes that Storm's End would be the most difficult to capture. The Rainwood is described in great detail with several kinds of trees, including weirwoods. The Golden Company's spymaster, Lysono Ma, meets the party and begins to lead them. Arianna does not care for him and describes him as looking like a Targaryen. They debate who is the better claimant, Aegon or Daenerys. Arianna contemplates whether Connington is worthy of Dornish assistance and believes he will need the Dornishmen to take King's Landing. She thinks of Savas and how the Golden Company has its elephants, but no dragons. She has ravens and sends them to her father. Arianna and her party finally arrive at Griffin's Roost. She is very put off by the crudeness of the sellswords in the castle, who are evasive when she asks them questions. Arianna is informed by Howden Halfmaester that Connington has not only already left for Storm's End, but that he has also taken it. Tyrell and Tarly soldiers are currently marching for King's Landing to try and take it back. Arianna is stunned by Connington's success. She does not think much of Mace Tyrell's chances. Again, the men offer little information on how it was achieved, but rumours indicate it was bloody. Arianna is told that Connington and Aegon want to meet her at Storm's End, but Daemon is wary and urges her not to go into danger, but to send himself in her place. Arianna rebukes him, saying that she must be her father's heir and go to meet this dragon. Tyrion 2. Tyrion is in the encampment of the Second Sons, awaiting his battle orders with the other men. The battle has already begun, and the dragons Rhaegal and Viserion are flying overhead. The Ironborn have arrived in Slaver's Bay. Tyrion can hear the clash of warships, and a fireship has blocked the mouth of the river. Tyrion reflects on his first battle at the Green Fork. He remembers this battle more clearly than the Battle of the Blackwater. The Second Sons are preparing themselves for battle, and Tyrion is reminded of Bronn when he observes Snatch making jokes. Despite his previous assertions that he did not care whether he lived or died, Tyrion has come to realize that he does care. Back in the tent, Penny is arming herself for battle too. Penny helps him with his own armor, as he reveals the fullest strategy of the current Yunkai-ish Supreme Commander. While reminiscing about the Battle of the Green Fork, Penny kisses him. This angers Tyrion. so much so that he is prepared to kill her if he had a weapon. His murderous rage is disrupted by the sounds of Rhaegal circling over the bay, while ships are clashing. Viserion has the attention of the sellswords as he roasts and consumes the corpses being thrown by the wicked sister. A messenger arrives from the supreme commander of the Yunkai, Gozerac Zoaraz. He demands that Brown Ben Plum bring his company to the bayshore to defend the slaver ships. Inkpots points out that Brown Ben is away with Malazar, the girl general, and he is the only one who can command the Second Sons. The messenger departs, and Tyrion and Jorah Mormont attempt to persuade the sellswords to turn their cloaks again. Brown Ben returns and calls a meeting with his captains, which Tyrion and Jorah attend. Malazar has commanded the Second Sons to defend Wicked Sister. Barristan Selmy is making for the Harridan, and Marceline's freedmen have defeated the Long Lancers, destroying the Ghost in the process. Another messenger from Moraz Zozerizian arrives to inform the Second Sons that Bloodbeard and 2 Giscari legions are defending the Harpy's daughter from the advancing Unsullied. The Second Sons are to sweep behind and take the Unsullied in the rear. Zern is the new supreme commander, Gorzak having been slain by the Prince of Tatters. The Windblown have turned their cloaks. The messenger recognizes Tyrion as an escaped slave of Yezin Zokazik and orders the Second Sons to surrender him. Jorah responds to this by killing the messenger. He falls on the Sivas table, knocking the White Dragon to the floor, which Tyrion picks up. Brown Ben Plum declares that they have always been Queen's men, and joining the Yunkai was just a ploy. The Forsaken. Aerion Dampier awakens in a grim dungeon and is forced to drink shade of the evening by his brother, Euron. Aerion dreams of his dead brother, Yuri, of Euron on a throne of skulls, and of gods impaled on the Iron Throne. Aerion remembers that after the King's Moot, he intended to raise the small folk of the Iron Islands, but he was quickly abducted by Euron's mutes. After the taking of the shields, he was held in the dungeon of Oakenshield Castle and visited by Felia Flowers, the bastard daughter of Lord Humphrey Hewitt. Despite Aerion's warning, Felia insisted she will become Euron's salt wife and a sister to Daenerys Targaryen, who is to be Euron's rock wife. While sailing on the Silence to the current dungeon, Euron admits to having caused the deaths of Harlan, Robin, and King Balon. At the second dungeon, Aerion is joined by mutilated priests, including Septons, a burnt red priest who quickly dies, and warlocks, one of whom repeats the word Pre. In another vision, Aerion sees Euron as a kraken-like figure on the Iron Throne, accompanied by a shadow in a woman's form. Aerion and the other priests are eventually brought from the second dungeon to the stone hall above. It is filled with hanging corpses, men who lived on an isle near the Arbor. Euron's men prepare for the arrival of the Red Wind Fleet and ships of House Hightower. On the deck of the Silence, Aerion sees Euron armoured in Valyrian steel and believes Euron's claim at the Kingsmoot to have visited Valyria. Euron orders the priests to be bound to the prows of ironborn longships, with Aerion on the Silence. Once at sea, Aerion is joined by Felia, who is tied next to him. She is naked with her tongue cut out and pregnant with Euron's child. Aerion tastes salt on his lips. And that's it for the 11 release sample chapters of The Winds of Winter Explained. While we wait for the release of The Winds of Winter, check out our playlist on every chapter of A Song of Ice and Fire Explained. Also, when you get the chance, try out Fantasy Flights, a Game of Thrones board game, digital edition.